Good day. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. It's Wednesday, January the 18th, 2023. We've got CEO James Rogers of Clarity Metals Corp joining us today. Clarity is focused on the acquisition, exploration, and development of precious metals, base metals, and strategic metal projects. But please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. James, thanks a lot for joining us today. And please tell us about Clarity and what you've been up to. You've been pretty busy with your news flow lately.
Yeah, we've definitely had an active winter here so far. And thanks, Martin, for inviting me to share a bit of the story here with those that are listening here. So that's great. So, yeah, exactly. My name is James Rogers. I'm the CEO of Clarity. As you've already introduced, we are a Canadian-focused junior explorer. We have a portfolio of 8 projects here now in Canada, and we are diverse in our commodity space, and we're actively exploring right now on 2 of our projects in Quebec, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today and kind of walk you through a little bit of the history of the company. Now, I just want to make sure that we can see my screen here. If you can give me a quick nod here, make sure everything's looking good, Martin.
Yeah, everything looks great.
Great. So talking a little bit about the corporate structure. So Clarity first started as a gold-focused explorer. We're currently sitting with 43 million shares issued and out. We recently made a pivot and rebranded the company as Clarity Metals to represent our updated focus on a multi-commodity portfolio approach. We've entered into agreements to acquire 50% of a very exciting lithium project in Quebec, located next to Allkem, as well as a very exciting gold project in the Abitibi, 30 kilometers away from Osisko's Windfall project. And we'll kind of jump into a little bit more details on that. We've also advanced a portfolio of projects in Newfoundland, where we're looking more at base and copper gold projects over there. And we still have our stable projects that we started the company with in British Columbia a couple of years ago. Now, my background is tech. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, but you mentioned your share structure is fairly tight at 43 million shares. Have you gone through any rollbacks? I'm looking at your chart. It's about 2.5 years old on the chart. How did you emerge? Were you like a CPC, or you could do an IPO, or what was sort of the origin story here?
Yeah. So we did this as a straight IPO. The initial listing assets were the Empirical project in BC, which I'll talk a little bit about later on in the presentation. That's not our core focus here now. So this was a straight IPO. We had raised about $11 million over the first year. We had initially gone into Quebec with a pretty advanced gold project, and ultimately have pivoted and moved in here now into the projects that we have. So we're 3 years now since the starting of the process of the formation of the company, and we've never rolled back. And we're it is a tight structure overall, and having not had to dilute too much along the way, especially with the acquisitions that we've done.
All right, thanks.
So myself, I'll introduce a little bit for those that don't know me. I am a technical person by background. I have an exploration services company that has worked internationally for about 15 years now for myself. Mainly, I cut my teeth in Canada, working in the Yukon and all over Quebec, Ontario, British Columbia, and then branched out internationally 10 years ago. I've been in the capital markets as a segue from that service industry for about 13, 14 years now. What my specialty has been is in running exploration projects, early stage programs, bringing something from initial concept through to discovery, advancing into that maiden resource, and then passing it off to more experienced groups or technical people to help advance a project once we're kind of into that advanced resource stage. Now, my passion has always been about project generation, coming up with new ideas, coming up with new projects and commodities, and really looking deep into data and pulling things together. As such, my background, I've seen over 100, probably about 150 here now, option transactions or various property vends that we've targeted, vended, pulled together. The company was largely built around myself, as we kind of used what my experience and leveraged that to pull everything together into what is now our portfolio of 8 projects. So as I mentioned, we started with our British Columbia assets, the Empirical, which is a copper gold porphyry project, Gretna and Tiber on Vancouver Island. We have a suite of base metal projects, nickel, copper, gold in Newfoundland, and are primarily focused on our flagship Lithium381 and the Fecteau project in Quebec here right now. Talking a little bit about Lithium381, and if some of you have been following us in the news flow, you'll see that we've been putting out quite a bit of updates on these projects. That's largely because we've had a lot of work to do over the last few months. So Lithium381, we structured a deal to earn 50%, forming a joint venture with Genius Metals, another company listed on TSXV. We have to spend about $750,000 in work to earn that percentage, 50%, at which point we'll get a joint venture spent. So over December, we conducted a pretty immense amount of geophysical work. Now, why this piece of ground is exciting and why this area is interesting to me is because it's adjacent to a $7 billion market cap company, Allkem Limited, who is building one of the next lithium production stories in Quebec. And in Canada, for that matter. Now, this project has 40 million tons at 1.4 Li2O. It's actually beginning construction right now. I just got a green light of approval. So they've already rented out the hotel, the local service station, and they've started their construction process on this project here now. We are in the same geology, and historically, this project had not been investigated for pegmatites or lithium. There is some more overburden over this. And what really piqued our interest was seeing something with an area of such a cluster of pegmatites in the same geology that just hadn't been looked at. So we really took advantage of our experience to target and pull this together. And Genius has been great to work with and get going on this. So recently we have completed an IP survey, a magnetometer survey, and some additional remote sensing work, all of which were pending results up until yesterday, where we released the preliminary results from the recently completed IP survey over this southwest portion of the project. Now, I'll just point out that these scales aren't the same across this because of overburden variation, but resistivity is probably our best targeting method for identifying areas that may have pegmatites. Pegmatites are, quartz-rich bodies, which are otherwise likely geochemically similar to the host rocks, in this case, around them. Now, what we're looking at here is an increase in resistivity. So red is good. More resistive rocks mean more silica flooding, or hopefully more silica flooding, and ultimately we're targeting a pegmatite in here. Now, what you'll see is I have outlined Allkem's total pit in their feasibility study here. You'll see the red that's in there is very high resistive, and the same sort of target that we're looking for is on our ground over here. So this is an untested target at this point. We don't have any outcrop over this. We don't have any indication on it. And we've recently today lobbied for a drill permit that's going to allow us to continue to follow up on this. We are still awaiting results for the airborne magnetometer, which is going to help us identify additional structures. Now, talking a little bit more about this area, though, we do see a lot of activity. Patriot Battery Metals is a little bit farther north. Allkem's our immediate adjacent neighbor, but this whole area has been pretty solidly staked in this camp for lithium exploration. You've got a number of significant projects that are advancing, like the Rose Critical Element Project or Wabuchi, all up this James Bay Road and in this area here of similar geology. So this is a pretty exciting opportunity and a low-cost entry for us to get into this camp and really swing for the fences on hopefully what's going to be a great follow-up exploration program on the back of these geophysics.
James, on with the Allkem, how deep or are there geographic or ground sampling stuff you can get that give you other indications besides just the airborne survey?
Yeah, so great question, because yes, ultimately we will be doing that. Now, we optioned this project about a month and a half ago. So of course, this is in Northern Canada. Everything's covered in snow. We're a little bit limited. And this is a bit of a downside of exploring a project right next to a mine that's being built, is that they're building a mine, which means the accommodations have been blocked out for them to build a mine. Now, we've recently gotten accommodations to follow up, but this is, while this is on great infrastructure for this area, the only service station essentially on the stretch of road is located right at this junction, right in the middle of this map at the end of their open pit. There's a service station there, which has some worker accommodations that Hydro-Quebec has used, and now Allkem is rented out for their initial construction until they get their camp built. So we haven't been able to get in and do any groundwork on this yet. There are no outcrops that are known in the area of this resistivity anomaly. So it is really going to come down to what we can get done here in spring. And that's why we've applied for the drill permit now. And that's going to expedite our exploration program as we get into Q2.
And can you, obviously everyone's got their motivations for that. What would, any sense of why Genius optioned off half of the project to you? They're cash tight, get you doing some of the work, or you have some expertise you bring to the project that they don't have, or any?
Also a great question. Now, I think they recognized our ability to help work with them to advance the project, which is why the deal was structured as it was, as a 50% earn in to form a joint venture. They, well, I hope that they have seen our value that we've continued to add in our planning and advancement and our ability to process and work on this data and really, bring the next value to this project. And I think that's what they saw right from the beginning. They were a little bit cash tight, but it certainly represented a good opportunity for them to de-risk their own operation by bringing in a partner like us to help develop and advance the project.
All right.
Jumping real quick into our next project, the Facto project is located in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt of Quebec. So this is an area that I've worked in for almost a decade now. One of the most prolific gold regions in the world. You're 190 million ounces plus produced in the last 120 years. It's a pretty significant piece of the Canadian economy for sure. And what's interesting in this area for me is looking at ground along these significant structures that I'm just going to kind of highlight and skip ahead a little bit here. I'll jump back to these terms. Now, these structures are largely controlling gold mineralization in the Abitibi. These gold lines here, the Jacoby, the Labarge, the Fester Porcupine. Now, these orogenic gold deposits that are in this area are largely related to these big structures. Now, where we have these Archean rocks, these large structures, and some fluid flow starting to happen, we're able to get some really interesting targets of mineralization developed. The case with Facto is really interesting. We know that we're on a large regional structure here. We've got known mineralization on the project. It's never really been drill tested below 150, 180 meters. What we do see is that we have the same base geology, the volcanics and metasediments as the majority of these other projects in the area. And the most notable two that are nearby are the Windfall project of Osisko Mining and the Gladiator and Duke area of Bonterra and Osisko. So this project had been sitting in another junior and just hadn't been advanced over the last little while. So we had identified an opportunity to negotiate a really friendly deal to get our hands on this and be able to start bringing our exploration expertise into this. So over this winter, we've again conducted a magnetometer survey, some remote sensing, and we did a more than 5,000 meter drill program, of which we're still waiting on results for. The drilling targets were largely based on a lot of till sampling, geochemical work. There's 9 targets on the project, of which we've drill tested 8 of them, I believe. And all of these just didn't get that real follow-up that they needed. So we had a bit of flow-through money that we put into the ground and really started to bring some value into this project. Sorry, just taking a look back. But you can see here at some of the mineral showings, the numbers are, up to 4 grams per ton at surface. So what we do see is the right geology, we see structure, and we see sniffs of gold mineralization. Osisko's Windfall is deep mineralization, extremely high grade. And this just hadn't been stepped at depth and hadn't really been explored in a methodical method, a methodical way most recently.
How far is the Windfall project again from? 30 kilometers. Yeah,
30 kilometers from where the old ramp had been driven when it used to be called the Eagle Hill. Yeah. So this is actually contiguous to Osisko's ground. And this figure here, you kind of get a good sense of it. Osisko's our immediate neighbor up to the north. There are a few other juniors working around in the south area, but Bonterra and Osisko are certainly the biggest and most noticeable projects within a 30 kilometer radius.
All right.
And this also, I will say that not only are we looking at orogenic gold in this project, there is some potential for VMS mineralization as well. So copper, lead, zinc in this case, but there are some very interesting targets. So we're really excited about getting some of the results out for that over the next month. I'd say we should start seeing some results flowing in.
Sorry, just going back to that last slide. So you have put 8 holes into the ground to date on this, and you're waiting for the results to come
We've
back.
put more than 5,000 meters into the ground across some 20 plus holes, actually, on 8 different targets. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Those are on 8 targets. Gotcha. Okay. With the 5,000 meters. Okay. And
correct. Yeah.
What is the rough timing you expect on the rest of the results to be coming out?
Yeah, so everything got shipped off here at the end of 2022. Okay. So we should be starting to see results trickling in here in the next week or two. We'll look to release these in batches as well. Yeah. So we'll probably look at first batches in the next few weeks here.
Okay. All right. And then you'll have some news flow coming out, hopefully a bit of an idea of what's going on down there. And then you'll be kind of have set to hopefully talk about a bunch of things at PDAC and so forth as a
function of all the work that we've done is certainly news flow. So, and just to summarize that again, the things that we've done that we're waiting results for are the drilling on Fecteau, the airborne survey that we've done, the remote sensing survey that we've done on Fecteau. So those are 3 work items there. And then the same with Lithium381. We're awaiting the mag results and some remote sensing results. We've just applied for the drill permit there. As to when we're going to mobilize, we're just working through those steps here now. So we'll be updating on that as we get the additional results in. On
the Lithium381, on the mobilized you've applied for the drill permits. Would that be maybe something you could hopefully squeeze into, let's say, late winter or spring, or would that more likely be a summer event?
Yeah, so you can work here in the winter. I will say that this winter has been pretty warm in this area. Okay. So the ground isn't as frozen as we'd necessarily like to see for winter operations. It's important to have pretty hard ground to be able to drag the drills and equipment across. That being said, it is frozen enough, so we certainly can. It's going to come down to contractor availability, accommodation availability. All these things are actively being worked on. I mean, we got the results days ago and had them released yesterday and had a permit in overnight. So we're working as fast as we can to make sure that we're advancing this project and getting ready to get to drilling here. So it's certainly a priority. We can get in there before the end of winter for sure.
Okay, great.
I'll just kind of talk a little bit about some of these other assets just to show our rounded out portfolio. Again, I kind of wanted to come back, Martin. Something we were talking about before all the listeners joined in is we aren't necessarily a project generator. We are a junior that's got a multi-commodity portfolio. At this point, we are advancing all of our projects and starting to build them up and looking to unlock value with them, whether that's transactional or internally by continuing to reach milestones on development of these projects. So we did look at what are going to be some pretty important commodities. So lithium is obviously pretty significant right now, being located next to the second biggest vehicle manufacturer in the world, in the US, having a domestic or relatively domestic North American supply of lithium to feed that electrification is extremely important. Nickel is also extremely important for the EV revolution, as we're calling it. And we looked at what are some great jurisdictions that we can get some ground in. And these projects came along, we picked them up. We haven't had a lot of time to be able to work on some of these in Newfoundland, but we'll be looking towards advancing these over spring into summer. This is a project located just south of Voisey's Bay. It's in Labrador. It's boat access on deep water or near deep water. It's a pretty large land position with some great historic results, up to 2% copper and 1.67 nickel. This project is a magmatic nickel, and what we're really excited about is going to be getting on the ground here with a sizable program. It's not something we can really pick away at over the winter, so this is a fair weather project for sure, at least for the first stage of exploration. Along with this nickel project, we've picked up a couple of VMS and another magmatic or MVT, and a magmatic nickel copper project in Newfoundland. Again, pretty grassroots. We've got some nice historic results, some 5 to 15% zinc over small historic intercepts. A lot of this is being compiled and ready to follow up. Suffice to say that we're continuing to build that portfolio up. I think Newfoundland and Quebec, in my opinion, are two of the best jurisdictions in Canada to operate in right now. You're seeing permits come through, you're seeing projects develop. So we really wanted to focus on that. Jumping over to BC, where we started the company. This is a dominant land position in the area just south of Lillooet. This is elephant country for sure. We did take some initial exploration on it for sure. And found some really good numbers. We've got some interesting copper mineralization as well as gold mineralization here. This project was initially explored as a molybdenite vein project, and there's a bunch of disseminated molybdenite around and some intrusive rocks. We started pulling it together as a compilation for porphyry exploration, as well as some copper oxide things that are structurally controlled. And we've continued to advance that as recently as last summer. And at this point, we're just letting our results kind of speak for themselves and looking at how we're going to continue to move this project along while we focus on the lithium and gold projects in Quebec.
All right.
And our last two projects are on Vancouver Island. These are more focused on higher grade, 1.5 ounce per ton historic samples. We've done some light work on these as well. Something that is on the company's radar will be to continue to increase value on these projects with some small work. But again, not distracting from the primary focus in Quebec.
All right. Okay.
Talking a bit about the capital structure, we touched on it earlier that we haven't rolled back since we IPO'd. 43 million shares now. We're sitting at 60 fully diluted with warrants and everything in. What we're looking at is a really good structure at this point with a bunch of news coming out from the work that we've been financed to do. So I think we're in a really good position as we come into this quarter here now. I'll do a quick little talk through. Obviously, myself has been talking. Everybody's probably a little bit tired of hearing me talk at this point. We've got Rose Zanuck, who's one of our directors. Andrew Males, based in London. Stephen Sulis is our CFO. We've kept the board pretty lean on this. A lot of it's been focused around myself being the most operational and operating and working on the projects. But I did want to build a very robust advisory board to help advance these projects and think about how we're going to continue to unlock value. Ian Graham is an ex-Rio Tinto technical geologist, very valuable. Rory Kutlawoglu as well, as active as a company's QP and advisor. He led the exploration program for Kaminak Gold, which was taken out by Gold Corp for their coffee project back 6-7 years ago now. Great operational field geologist. Michel Robert has been our Quebec connection from the beginning. He is Quebecois himself, and he's built and commissioned more mines than I think I've managed to visit in my career so far. His resume speaks for itself, from Pan American to Teck and Cartier Mining. Yeah, you name it. He's an engineer and process engineer by background. And Michael Williams, of course, with Kinross, Underworld Resources to Kinross, about 13 years ago now, 10, 13 years ago. Excellent corporate advisors throughout, and our legal advising team here. That kind of concludes a little bit of an introduction about the team, a bit more information about the projects. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks. So any questions from the audience, please punch them in. How is your balance sheet looking right now, and how far down, how much progress are you going to get, and what kind of catalysts are going to come out before you kind of need to go back to the till and I guess have a go to the market with a sense of this is our priorities, this is what we're going to spend our money on. Obviously, you've got a bunch of drill results, and there is a lot of data coming out, which will hopefully be a positive catalyst. But could you just talk about the general plan and the contingencies going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've Definitely got a lot of results coming. And the company is able to continue to explore with the cash that it has right now. If we want to do a substantial drill program on this project or any, really advanced exploration methods at this point, we would probably need to raise a little bit more cash depending on what that looks like. Now, we do have these news catalysts and results catalysts that we're looking to continue some momentum in the market. You can see we've been trading pretty well over the last little while, up both in price and in volume. So I'd like to think that if we can keep some good momentum going here, we shouldn't have a problem financing additional exploration as we see fit.
All right. And just to wrap up here, I guess, can you just to summarize now that we're at the end, the key sort of data items or news flow that we're expecting over the next coming months, just so we can kind of consolidate it in our brain here?
Absolutely. So the news flow that we have coming is related to the work that's been done over the last couple of months. So Lithium381, we're awaiting magnetic results. We're awaiting results from remote sensing survey. This is a pretty advanced hyperspectral survey that's going to hopefully give us some really informative results. For Lithium381, we'll also be looking to talk about the next steps exploration on the back of those results. For the Fecto Gold project in Quebec, we're awaiting magnetometer results again, so airborne survey. We're awaiting remote sensing results, and we're awaiting a batch of more than 5,000 meters of drilling. All
right. That's and that'll probably all come out within the next drill results take a bit in the next 6 to 8 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, we drilled the program with 2 drills on site as well, to really get that flow through money in the ground and make sure that we can optimize the cost of the program. So a lot of that was going to come over in the next month and a half here.
Okay, great. Well, James, let's wrap things up here. Any final comments you want to make before we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate the chance to talk a bit about the company. As I've mentioned, we are certainly excited about getting these next steps of exploration and results together and updating the market as we continue to advance both the lithium and the gold projects in Quebec.
All right. James, that's excellent. Thank you. We got a lot to watch from news going forward. Hopefully we'll get you back here in maybe a few months after the results come out, and you've got maybe a plan for how you're going to target things into the spring and the summer. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin.
Cheers.